The excavation team fell silent as the final layer of sediment was carefully removed. The stasis pod, buried for millennia beneath the moon's surface, glowed with a soft blue light that none of their instruments could explain. Captain Kim stood back, arms crossed. 30 years of searching, and we finally found one. Dr. Park adjusted his scanner. Life signs are impossible. It's been at least 50,000 years. The pod's surface suddenly rippled like water, and before anyone could react, it split open. Rising from within was a towering figure, armor gleaming with symbols that seemed to shift and change as they watched. The warrior stood nearly 3 meters tall, its helmet featuring an opaque visor that revealed nothing of the being inside. The Mercaean scientists chittered in alarm, backing away rapidly. The Volth representatives hissed and retreated to their shuttle. Only the humans remained, though they too maintained a cautious distance. "Why are they running?" Lieutenant Lee whispered. Captain Kim's communicator buzzed. On the screen, Ambassador Tai appeared, his expression grave. "Get your people out of there immediately." "That's a guardian of Vec." "A what?" "A species so ancient and dangerous that every spacefaring race has legends warning about them. No one approaches a guardian and lives." The warrior raised a hand, and a perimeter of energy formed around it, creating a perfect circle 30 meters in diameter. Then it stood, motionless, as if waiting. The humans backed away slowly. Captain Kim motioned for his team to retreat to a safe distance. The moon's thin atmosphere made every breath shallow, and the low gravity made their movements awkward. But no one dared turn their back on the ancient warrior. "Maintain visual contact," Kim ordered. "No sudden movements." Dr. Park kept his scanner pointed at the warrior. "Captain, these readings don't make sense. The technology in that armor, it's like nothing I've ever seen." For 3 days, the warrior did not move from its spot. The energy barrier remained active, a perfect circle of shimmering blue light. Scientists from 12 different species set up observation posts at what they considered a safe distance. None would approach closer than 100 meters. "The Coalition Council is meeting to decide what to do," Ambassador Tai informed Captain Kim. "Most representatives want it destroyed immediately." Kim frowned. Without even trying to communicate, this could be the greatest discovery in galactic history. "You don't understand," Tai replied. "Every elder species recognizes that armor. The Mercaeans have cave paintings 50,000 years old showing those warriors bringing death. The Volth have an entire religion based on surviving their wrath. Only you humans, so new to space, don't carry the fear in your blood." On the 4th day, the warrior began to move. It walked slowly around the perimeter of its energy barrier, studying the observation posts. The alien scientists fled in panic. Human researchers held their ground but readied evacuation transports. Lieutenant Lee had been watching the warrior through high-powered binoculars. "Captain, I think it's curious about us." "That's enough," Kim decided. "Pack up. We're pulling back to base until the Coalition makes a decision." As the team prepared to leave, Dr. Sun approached Captain Kim. She was the youngest member of the expedition, an expert in ancient languages. "Captain, I've been analyzing the symbols on its armor," she said, showing him her tablet. "They're similar to markings found on ruins across the galaxy. I don't think they're warnings. I think they're a record of some kind." "A record of what?" "I'm not sure yet, but I don't believe this being is hostile. It's been awake for days and hasn't attacked anyone." "The Coalition votes tomorrow," Kim said. "They'll probably decide to bomb this entire site from orbit." That night, Dr. Sun couldn't sleep. The symbols from the warrior's armor filled her dreams. She felt drawn to them, as if they were calling to her. Before dawn, she made her decision. Captain Kim was awakened by an urgent call from the security team. "Sir, Dr. Sun is gone," and she took her over. Kim rushed to the command center. On the monitors, they could see a small rover approaching the warrior's position. "Get her on comms now," Kim shouted. Dr. Sun's voice came through clearly. "I'm sorry, Captain. But we can't let them destroy this being without at least trying to communicate. Turn around immediately. That's an order. It's too late. I'm already here. The screen showed Dr. Sun's rover stopping just outside the energy barrier. She stepped out, alone and unarmed, carrying only a tablet. What is she doing? Lieutenant Lee whispered. Dr. Sun walked slowly toward the barrier. The warrior turned to face her, its helmet reflecting the light of the distant sun. My name is Dr. Sun, she said clearly. I come in peace. The warrior did not move. Dr. Sun held up her tablet, displaying the symbols she had decoded. I believe you were left here as a guardian, she continued. I believe you were protecting something. We want to understand. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then, slowly, the warrior raised its hand. The energy barrier rippled and opened a small path, just wide enough for one person to walk through. She's going to die, Ambassador Ta said, watching from the command center. Captain Kim grabbed a weapon. Prepare a rescue team. But Dr. Sun didn't hesitate. She walked forward, through the opening in the barrier. It closed behind her. The warrior towered over her, 3 times her height. It studied her for what seemed like an eternity. Then it did something unexpected. It knelt down, bringing its helmeted head to her level. With slow, deliberate movements, it reached up and removed its helmet. The face revealed was not what anyone expected. It was almost delicate, with skin that shimmered like the barrier itself. Its eyes were deep and ancient, filled with something that might have been surprise. Dr. Sun stood her ground, showing no fear. She held up her tablet again, pointing to the symbols. The warrior reached out one massive hand and touched the screen. Then it spoke, its voice resonating strangely through the thin atmosphere. You are the first to approach in 50,000 years. In the command center, everyone watched in stunned silence as Dr. Sun began to communicate with the ancient being that all other species feared too much to face. Dr. Junyu couldn't sleep. For 3 days, the warrior had remained in the same position, while representatives from 12 species argued about what to do. She reviewed her notes again, comparing the symbols on the warrior's armor to ancient petroglyphs found across the galaxy. You're obsessed, Captain Kim said, entering her lab. The coalition is voting to destroy it from orbit. That would be a mistake, Jun replied, not looking up. These markings aren't warnings. They're a record. This being was protecting something. From what? That's what I intend to find out. Before dawn, Jun slipped past the security perimeter. In her pack were artifacts she'd collected, fragments bearing similar symbols to those on the warrior's armor. Her heart pounded as she approached the energy barrier, which hummed with potential. I know you understand language, she called out. I've brought something that might interest you. The warrior turned, facing her directly for the first time. The movement was fluid, impossibly graceful for something so large. It studied her for a long moment, then with a gesture created an opening in the barrier. Jun stepped through, becoming the first being in 50,000 years to stand face to face with a guardian of Vec. The air inside the barrier felt different. It was warmer and somehow thicker, as if the very molecules had been changed. Jun took a deep breath, steadying herself. The warrior stood before her, silent and watching. My name is Dr. Junyu, she said, trying to keep her voice from shaking. I'm a researcher with the human exploration team. The warrior said nothing but tilted its head slightly. Jun slowly reached into her pack and removed a stone tablet. It was small, barely the size of her hand, but covered in symbols that matched those on the warrior's armor. I found this on a planet 6 light-years from here, she explained, holding it up. The locals call it the Star Stone. They say it fell from the sky when their ancestors were still living in caves. The warrior moved closer, bending down to examine the tablet. Its movements were strangely fluid, like water in human form. Up close, Jun could see that what had looked like solid armor was actually a material that shifted and flowed, with the symbols moving across its surface like living things. Your people left these markers across the galaxy, didn't they? June asked. They're not warnings. They're maps. The warrior reached out and gently took the tablet from her hands. It studied the stone, tracing the symbols with one long finger. Then it spoke, its voice deep and resonant, yet somehow musical. You are correct, human. Not warnings. Guides. June's heart raced. It understood her. What is your name? She asked. The warrior made a sound that was impossible for human vocal cords to reproduce, a complex series of tones that seemed to resonate from multiple sources at once. You may call me Han, it said after a moment, seemingly choosing a sound June could pronounce. Han, she repeated. Why are you here, on this moon? Han looked up at the stars, visible through the thin atmosphere. I wait. I guard. I protect. Protect what? Han turned back to her. All life. Back at the base, alarms were sounding. Captain Kim rushed into the command center, still pulling on his uniform jacket. What's happening? He demanded. Lieutenant Bake pointed at the monitors. It's Dr. Yu, sir. She's inside the barrier with the alien. Kim stared at the screen in disbelief. The cameras showed June standing directly in front of the warrior, seemingly engaged in conversation. Get a rescue team ready, he ordered, and tell the coalition representatives. Sir, Buck said hesitantly, they're already aware. The Mercaean ambassador is demanding we fire on the site immediately, before the warrior can corrupt Dr. Yu. Kim's jaw tightened. No one fires on my people. Get me a direct line to that barrier. Inside the energy field, June was showing Han more artifacts. She had spent years collecting strange objects from across known space, things that didn't fit with the cultures that possessed them. Many bore symbols similar to those on Han's armor. These were left by your people, she said. It wasn't a question. Han nodded. Seeds planted. Knowledge preserved. Knowledge of what? The enemy. The void that consumes. Han's voice grew darker. They came before. They will come again. June felt a chill run down her spine. Is that why you're here? To fight these enemies? To warn? To prepare? To lead the defense? Han gestured at the artifacts. Each holds a piece. Together, they show the way. June's communicator buzzed. She ignored it. The way to what? Salvation, Han said simply. The communicator buzzed again, more insistently. Reluctantly, June answered it. Dr. Yu, this is Captain Kim. What the hell do you think you're doing? Making first contact, Captain, she replied calmly. Han understands our language and is communicating freely. Han. Kim sounded confused. That's what I call the Guardian. Listen, Captain, you need to stop the coalition from taking any action. Han isn't a threat. He's a protector. The Mercaeans and Volth disagree. They're demanding immediate action. They're wrong, June insisted. Their fear is based on misunderstanding. Han's people left markers across the galaxy, including on Mercaia and Volth. They weren't warnings about the Guardians. They were warnings about something else, something worse. There was a pause. You have 1 hour to prove that, Kim said finally. After that, I can't hold them back. As the communication ended, Han looked at June. Your kind does not fear me. Some do, June admitted. But humans are curious by nature. We seek to understand before we judge. A wise approach. Han seemed to consider something, then made a decision. He touched his chest, and the armor there shifted, revealing a compartment. From it, he removed a small cube that glowed with the same blue light as the barrier. This contains the truth, Han said, offering it to June. All that my people knew of the void, all that we sacrificed to stop it. June took the cube carefully. It felt warm in her hands, pulsing slightly like a heartbeat. Why give this to me? She asked. Han's expression, alien as it was, seemed to soften. In 50,000 years of waiting, you are the first to approach without fear. The first to seek understanding. My people are gone now. Someone must carry the warning. As June held the cube, images began to form in her mind, stars being consumed by darkness, worlds dying, a desperate last stand by beings of light and energy, guardians like Han being placed throughout the galaxy, seeds of resistance against a tide of oblivion. She gasped, nearly dropping the cube as the visions faded. The void, it's still coming, isn't it? Han nodded gravely. Time grows short. The cycle repeats. June looked down at the cube, then back at Han. Her hour was almost up, but now she understood what needed to be done. I need to show this to my captain, she said, to all the species of the coalition. They need to understand what we're facing. They will fear, Han warned. Yes, June agreed. But fear can unite as well as divide. If the void threatens all life, then all life must stand together. Han studied her for a long moment, then nodded. With a gesture, he widened the opening in the barrier. Go, he said. Carry the warning. I will wait. June stepped out of the barrier, the cube clutched tightly in her hands. She turned back once to look at Han, the ancient guardian who had waited 50,000 years for someone brave enough to listen. I'll come back, she promised. I know, Han replied. So your name is Rai, June said, carefully pronouncing the complex sound the warrior had taught her. The warrior nodded, helmet now removed to reveal a face that was surprisingly delicate despite its alien features. Rai's skin was pale blue, with intricate patterns that seemed to pulse with the same energy as the armor. Your species has no fear, Rai observed, voice resonating strangely. The others remember what we were, but you approach with curiosity. Humans are newcomers to space, Jum explained. We don't share the others' historical trauma. Through a combination of gestures, drawings, and eventually a rudimentary translation program, June learned that Rai was part of an ancient defense force. The Guardians had been placed throughout the galaxy, awaiting the return of something Rai called the Void Entities. But they never came, June asked. I awakened on schedule, Rai replied. The threat should have manifested. My people. Rai paused. There should be signals from the homeworld. There is only silence. Meanwhile, the coalition grew increasingly agitated about June's daily visits to the warrior. Admiral Hyun called an emergency meeting. Dr. Yu has compromised our security, he announced. We have no idea what information she's sharing with this potential threat. The Guardian isn't hostile, June argued. Rai is confused and alone. The civilization that created the Guardians is gone, but the threat they feared might still exist. For 2 weeks now, June had visited Rai every day. Each time, she brought new items to help their communication. Old star charts, ancient texts, tools that might bridge the gap between their worlds. Today, she brought music. This is how humans express feelings that have no words, June explained as she set up a small speaker. She played a piece of classical music, watching as Rai tilted his head, listening intently. When the music ended, Rai touched the armor on his chest. It shifted and flowed, revealing a small device. Rai activated it, and sounds filled the air. It wasn't music as humans understood it, but patterns of tones that seemed to weave together, creating something both beautiful and alien. The songs of my people, Rai said. None have heard them for 50,000 years. June sat quietly, letting the strange sounds wash over her. She imagined the civilization that had created such music, a people so advanced they could place guardians throughout the galaxy, a people now gone. What happened to them? She asked when the music ended. Ray's patterns dimmed slightly. I do not know. When I entered stasis, our empire spanned 1,000 worlds. We had defeated the void entities in 3 great wars. The 4th was coming. I was placed here to guard a weak point in space, where they had broken through before. You were supposed to wake up when they returned. Yes, but something is wrong. The sensors show no breach, no void energy, and no signal from command. Back at the base, humans and aliens argued. The human scientists wanted to continue studying Rai. The Coalition representatives wanted him destroyed. These guardians nearly wiped out my ancestors. The Mercadian ambassador chittered. Our oldest stories tell of their weapons turning our cities to ash. We have only Dr. Yu's interpretation of what this creature is saying, Admiral Hyun added. For all we know, it's gathering intelligence before it attacks. Captain Kim stood up. Dr. Yu has spent more time with the Guardian than anyone. Her assessment should carry weight. She is compromised, Admiral Hyun insisted, too fascinated to see the danger. The next day, June found her access denied. Guards stood at the perimeter, and her credentials had been revoked. I'm sorry, Dr. Yu, Lieutenant Baek said. Orders from Admiral Hyun. No one is to approach the Guardian without Coalition approval. June returned to her lab, frustrated but not defeated. She still had the data she'd collected, the recordings of Rai's language, the ancient symbols they'd decoded together. That night, her computer chimed. A message from Captain Kim. My office. Now. Kim looked tired when she arrived. The Coalition has made its decision. They're sending a destroyer. It will be here in 3 days. They can't do that, June protested. Rai isn't a threat. They believe otherwise. And frankly, I'm not convinced either. This Guardian speaks of void entities that consume worlds. What if it's lying? What if it's the threat? It's not, June insisted. I know it. Kim studied her. How? How can you be so sure? June hesitated, then reached into her pocket. She pulled out a small object, like a crystal the size of her thumb. It glowed with soft blue light. What is that? Kim asked. Rai gave it to me. It's a memory crystal. It contains the history of their war against the void. Kim stared at the crystal. You brought alien technology onto the base without authorization. I had to. You need to see what I've seen. Kim should have reported her immediately. Instead, he locked his office door. Show me. June placed the crystal on his desk. It projected a three-dimensional image above it, showing stars and galaxies. Then darkness spreading between them, consuming everything it touched. The void, June explained. It's not a species. It's something else. Something that eats reality itself. The images shifted, showing beings like Rai fighting against the darkness with weapons of light and energy. Worlds being evacuated. A last desperate plan. Rai's people created the Guardians to watch for the void's return, June continued. They placed them at weak points, places where the void had broken through before. If this threat is real, why haven't we seen any sign of it? Kim asked. I don't know. Neither does Rai. That's what worries him. The timetable says the void should have returned by now, and his people should have contacted him. Kim rubbed his eyes. Even if I believe you, the Coalition won't. They've made up their minds. Then help me get back to Rai, June pleaded. He needs to know what's happening. We need to understand why the void hasn't returned. Kim was silent for a long time. Finally, he nodded. Tomorrow night, I'll arrange for the guards to be elsewhere for 30 minutes. That's all I can do. The next night, June slipped past the perimeter. She ran to the energy barrier where Rai waited. I feared you would not return, Rai said as he opened the barrier for her. They're coming to destroy you, June said without preamble. A warship, 2 days from now. Rai showed no surprise. It is the fear. My people tried to prevent this. We left warnings, knowledge. But fear turns knowledge into superstition. We need to find proof that the void is real, June said. Something to convince them. Rai was quiet for a moment. Then he turned and walked to his stasis pod. From inside, he removed something that looked like a star chart, but three-dimensional and made of light. This shows the weak points, Rai explained. Places where the void has broken through before. Places where it should break through again. June studied the chart. One point glowed brighter than the others. What's this one? She asked, pointing. The primary breach point. The first place the void should have appeared. June checked the coordinates. then gasped. "Rai, I know this system. There's a research station there. Human scientists studying space-time anomalies." Rai looked at her sharply. "What kind of anomalies?" "I don't know exactly. Something about fluctuations in reality. Areas where physical laws break down." "The void," Rai whispered. "It has already begun." As if responding to his words, the ground beneath them trembled. Rai looked up at the sky, his patterns glowing brightly. "What is it?" June asked. "A signal," Rai said. "After 50,000 years, a signal." The ground trembled beneath their feet. Deep within the moon, something had activated. Rai's posture changed immediately, armor locking into combat configuration. "It begins," Rai said, voice now hard. "The beacon signals. They come." "What beacon?" June asked, but already strange readings were flooding her instruments. A pulse of energy shot from somewhere beneath them, aimed at a distant point in space. Rai moved with sudden urgency, retrieving weapons and devices from the stasis pod. "My purpose awakens. The void opens." When June reported back, the coalition base was in chaos. Long-range sensors detected a distortion forming at the edge of the solar system, a tear in space itself. Rai's people sacrificed themselves, June explained to the assembled leaders. They created the Guardians as a last defense against invaders from another dimension. The threat is real, and it's here. Then we should destroy this Guardian before it can help its allies, Admiral Hyun insisted. "You don't understand," June said desperately. "Rai isn't the invasion. Rai is the only thing standing between us and what's coming through that tier." The command center fell silent. On the main screen, the distortion grew larger. It looked like a wound in space, edges ragged and bleeding darkness. Captain Kim spoke first. "How do we know this Guardian isn't causing the distortion?" "Because Rai has been warning me about this for weeks," Jun replied. "The void entities are breaking through, just as his people predicted 50,000 years ago." The Mercaean ambassador stepped forward, his fur standing on end. "My people have legends of the dark time, when stars went black and worlds died. We thought the Guardians brought this darkness. We were wrong." "Yes," Jun said firmly. "The Guardians fought against the darkness. They were protectors, not destroyers." Admiral Hyun wasn't convinced. "Convenient timing. This Guardian wakes up, and suddenly we have an invasion that only it can stop." A technician interrupted them. "Sir, the distortion is growing, and there's something coming through." On the screen, shapes emerged from the tear. They were difficult to look at directly, as if they existed in more dimensions than human eyes could process. They moved in ways that made no sense, folding space around themselves. "Void entities," June whispered. Alarms blared across the base. Emergency protocols activated as the coalition forces prepared for an attack they didn't understand. "Our weapons have no effect," a voice shouted over the comms. "Energy blasts pass right through them." June turned to Admiral Hyun. "We need Rai. He knows how to fight them." Hyun hesitated, torn between old fears and new threats. Finally, he nodded. "Get your Guardian. But if this is a trick..." "It's not," June promised. She rushed back to Rai's position. The Guardian stood at the edge of his energy barrier, weapons ready. The barrier itself had changed, now glowing with a fierce white light. "Rai," June called. "They're here. The void entities are breaking through." Rai nodded. "I know. The beacon beneath this moon was placed to warn of their coming. It has slept for 50,000 years, waiting for this moment. The coalition forces are willing to work with you, but they don't know how to fight these things. They cannot be fought with conventional weapons," Rai explained. "They exist partially outside normal spacetime. Only weapons specifically designed to affect their unique phase state will harm them." "Like your weapons?" "Yes." Rai looked up at the sky. Through the thin atmosphere, they could see the distortion spreading. "But I am only one Guardian. There should be thousands of us to face this breach. What happened to the others?" Rai's patterns dimmed. I do not know. The signal I received. It was not from command. It was from another guardian. Far from here. Just one. Like me, it waits alone. Back at the base, more reports of the strange entities poured in. They seemed to be spreading across the system, moving from planet to planet. They're absorbing energy, a scientist reported, draining it from everything they touch. The outer planets are already cooling rapidly. Captain Kim turned to June as she entered. Your guardian better have a plan. He does, Jun said, but he needs help. They gathered in the main hangar. Rai stood nearly twice as tall as the tallest human, his armor glowing with energy. The aliens and humans kept a respectful distance, still wary despite the greater threat. The void entities feed on energy, Rai explained. They consume it from stars, planets, living beings. In my time, they devoured half the galaxy before we found a way to stop them. How did you stop them? Admiral Hun asked. We created weapons that could push them back into their dimension and seal the breaches they created. Rai held up a device that looked like a spear made of light. I have these weapons, but I cannot be everywhere at once. Then teach us to use them, Captain Kim suggested. Rai hesitated. These were never meant for other species to wield. The energy they channel could harm you. We don't have a choice, Jun said quietly. If we do nothing, everything dies. Rai studied them, then nodded. I will teach those who are willing. What followed was a crash course in weapons beyond human understanding. Rai modified some of his smaller devices to be used by humans and other species. Each volunteer was taught how to activate the weapons, how to focus them on the phase state of the void entities. You must understand, Rai told them. These weapons do not kill. The void entities cannot die as we understand death. They can only be pushed back and contained. As they prepared, reports continued to come in. The void entities were moving faster now, consuming more. 3 outposts had gone dark. A colony on the 4th planet reported strange shadows moving through their city. We're out of time, Admiral Hyun announced. They're coming here next. Rai nodded. This moon was always their target. The beacon here marks a major weak point between dimensions. Why? Jun asked. Some places in space are naturally thin, Rai explained. Boundaries between realities that can be more easily crossed. My people mapped these places. That is why I was stationed here. They moved to the surface, forming a defensive line around the base. Rai stood at the center, his weapons ready. Around him were humans, Mercaeans, Volth, and representatives from 8 other species, all holding modified guardian weapons. June stood beside Rai, watching the sky. The tear was visible now, a dark wound that seemed to swallow the stars around it. I am afraid, she admitted quietly. Fear is natural, Rai replied. My people knew fear, but we also knew courage. What if we fail? Rai looked down at her. Then others will continue the fight. The signal I received. It means we are not alone. Other guardians still exist. And now, new guardians stand with us. The first of the void entities appeared on the horizon, moving across the lunar surface like living shadows. Where they passed, the ground seemed to wither, energy draining away. Remember your training, Rai called out. Focus on their center. Push them back to their own reality. As the entities approached, Rai raised his weapon. Energy surged from it, striking the leading entity. For a moment, the darkness wavered, its edges becoming clear. Then it shrieked, a sound that existed more in the mind than in the air, and folded in on itself, disappearing. Now, Rai shouted. Together, the unlikely alliance raised their weapons. Humans who had never heard of guardians until weeks ago. Aliens whose ancestors had feared them for millennia. All fighting side by side against a threat older than their civilizations. The battle for the moon had begun. And beyond it, the battle for reality itself. The sky above turned an impossible color as the dimensional breach widened. From within emerged shapes that seemed to violate the laws of physics. beings of darkness and angles that hurt to look at directly. Rai stood at the center of the energy perimeter, ancient weapons humming to life. The first wave of entities struck the barrier and were incinerated, but there were more coming. "We can't just watch," Jun argued with Captain Kim. "Rai won't survive alone." "The Coalition has ordered non-interference," Kim replied, though his expression showed his doubt. The barrier flickered as more entities attacked. Rai fought with incredible skill, but the perimeter was shrinking. Jun grabbed a plasma rifle. Humans don't abandon allies. To her surprise, Kim took up his own weapon. Neither do I. What began with 2 humans soon became a squad, then platoons from the human expeditionary force. Seeing their determination, a group of Mercaean scientists joined, followed by Volth warriors who overcame their ancestral fear. Rai, wounded but fighting, looked up in surprise as humans and aliens alike joined the battle. With coordinated efforts, they pushed back the entities until Rai could activate a device that sealed the dimensional tear. As silence fell across the battlefield, Rai approached Jun. "In 50,000 years of waiting, I feared my purpose was lost. Your species is young, but you have the spirit of the Guardians." Rai placed a small device in Jun's hand. "My people are gone, but the war continues. Humans will now stand where we once stood." Around them, the Coalition forces that had fought together now looked at each other with new understanding. Ancient fears had been replaced with hard-won respect. Rai looked to the stars. "I am the last of the old Guardians. You shall be the first of the new." The battle had raged for 3 days. The moon's surface was scarred with strange burns where the void entities had touched down. The air itself seemed thinner, as if the creatures had fed on the very atmosphere. Jun watched as medics treated the wounded. So many had fallen, yet so many more had stood their ground. Humans fighting alongside aliens who, just days ago, had been arguing for Rai's destruction. Rai moved among them now, his armor damaged but still glowing. The patterns on his skin pulsed weakly. He had taken the brunt of the attack, standing at the front line, teaching them how to fight even as he fought himself. "Will they come back?" Jun asked as Rai approached her. "Yes," Rai said simply. "The void always returns. This was just one breach. There will be others." Admiral Hyun limped over, his uniform torn and burned. He had joined the fight on the 2nd day, after seeing his own weapons fail against the entities. "Guardian," he said formally, "the Coalition owes you an apology, and our thanks." Rai inclined his head. "No apology is needed. Fear is a natural response to the unknown." "Not anymore," Hyun replied. "Now we know, and we will be ready next time." The small device Rai had given Jun glowed softly in her hand. It was shaped like a star, with crystal facets that caught the light. "What is this?" she asked. "A Guardian's key," Rai explained. "It contains all the knowledge my people gathered about the void, the locations of other Guardians who may still survive, and the means to create new weapons." Captain Kim joined them, his arm in a sling. "You're giving this to us, after we almost destroyed you." To her, Rai corrected, looking at Jun. She approached without fear. She listened. She understood. These qualities make a true Guardian. The survivors gathered around as Rai spoke, humans and aliens alike, all bearing the marks of battle, all now united by a common enemy. "My people believe that the void could never be truly defeated," Rai continued. "It exists beyond our reality, touching ours only at weak points. We can only guard these points, push back the incursions when they come." "For 50,000 years, you waited to fulfill this duty," Jun said. "Alone." "No longer alone," Rai replied. In the days that followed, a new alliance formed. The Coalition, once divided by ancient fears and modern politics, found common purpose. The Guardians' weapons were studied, modified, reproduced. Jun worked closely with Rai, learning everything she could from the ancient warrior. 1 month after the battle, Rai prepared to leave. The signal I received, he explained to June as they stood beside his now repaired stasis pod. It came from another Guardian, far from here. I must find them. Let me come with you, June said immediately. Ray shook his head. Your place is here. The key I gave you will help you prepare this system's defenses, and when you are ready, it will lead you to us. Us. The new Guardians, those who will stand watch over the weak points. Human, Mercaean, Volth, all who choose to take up this duty. Around them, the moon base had been transformed. What had been a simple research outpost was now a fortress. Deep scans had located the ancient beacon that Ray's people had left, now being studied by scientists from a dozen worlds. Admiral Hyun approached, wearing a new uniform that bore a symbol similar to the patterns on Ray's armor. The first Guardian outpost is operational, he reported. Teams are being dispatched to the 6 nearest weak points. Rai nodded approvingly. You learn quickly. We have a good teacher, Hyun replied. As the time for departure neared, June found herself struggling to say goodbye. The tall, alien warrior had become more than an ally. He was a friend, a mentor, a link to an ancient past and an uncertain future. How will I know if I'm doing this right? She asked. Being a Guardian. Ray's patterns brightened slightly. A gesture she had learned was the equivalent of a smile. You already know, he said. You approach with curiosity, not fear. You seek understanding before judgment. You stand by allies, even when others retreat. These are the qualities of a Guardian. Rai stepped into his pod, which had been modified to serve as a small ship. The energy barrier that had once protected him now extended to encompass the vessel. The key will guide you, Rai said as the pod began to rise. And when the time is right, we will meet again. June watched as the pod ascended into the sky, becoming a bright point of light among the stars. Around her stood humans and aliens, once separated by fear, now united in purpose. Captain Kim placed a hand on her shoulder. So, Guardian June, what now? She looked down at the key in her hand, then up at the stars where Rai had vanished. Now we prepare, she said. The void will return, and when it does, we'll be waiting. Across the galaxy, at points where reality grew thin, new Guardians took their positions. Humans who had never heard of the void just months before. Aliens whose ancestors had fled from the very warriors they now emulated. All standing together, watching the darkness between stars for signs of the enemy. And somewhere among those stars, an ancient Guardian traveled, seeking others of his kind, no longer alone in his eternal vigil. The war continued, but now, so did hope. The end